Let me ask you something right now, and I want you to be honest with yourself. How many times have you said, I'll start when I feel motivated, I'll change when I'm ready, I'll take action when the spark hits me, and how many times has that spark actually shown up when you needed it most? The truth is, if motivation was reliable, every dream you've ever had would already be your reality, but it's not. And that's not your fault. You were simply taught the wrong order. Most people wake up each day believing that motivation is something that should arrive before they take action, like a green light that suddenly turns on and gives them permission to move. They wait for energy, for confidence, for excitement, for the right mood. And while they are waiting, nothing changes. The truth that transforms everything is that motivation is not the cause of action. It is the effect of it. Action comes first, and motivation follows as a natural consequence. When you move your body, shift your focus, and engage in purposeful behavior, your emotional state begins to change almost immediately because the brain responds to motion with chemistry, and chemistry creates feeling. Think about how often you have felt tired, unmotivated, or unsure, only to suddenly feel energized once you actually started doing the thing you were avoiding. The workout you didn't feel like beginning suddenly feels powerful 10 minutes in. The work you were procrastinating on becomes engaging once momentum kicks in. This is not coincidence. It is biology and psychology working together. The human system is designed to respond to movement, not hesitation. When you sit still, your mind magnifies doubt. When you take action, your nervous system shifts into engagement, focus sharpens, and motivation is generated through experience rather than imagination. Waiting for motivation keeps people stuck because feelings are unreliable. They change with sleep, food, stress, weather, and circumstance. If your progress depends on how you feel, then your future will always be controlled by variables you cannot fully manage. Action, on the other hand, is a decision. It is something you can choose regardless of mood. The moment you choose to act despite discomfort, you send a powerful signal to your identity that you are someone who moves forward without needing perfect conditions. That signal compounds over time and becomes self-belief. Motivation created by action is stronger than motivation created by emotion because it is rooted in evidence. When you act, you prove to yourself that you are capable. Each step forward reinforces certainty, and certainty fuels more action. This creates a loop of momentum where effort produces results, results produce confidence, and confidence produces drive. People who appear highly motivated are often just people who have been in motion long enough to experience this loop repeatedly. The shift happens when you stop asking yourself how you feel and start asking yourself what action aligns with the life you want to build. Even small actions count. A single decision to move, to start, to engage can interrupt days, months, or even years of stagnation. Motivation is not something you wait to receive. It is something you earn through movement, through discipline, through choosing progress over comfort, through stepping forward even when resistance is present, and especially when it is present. Waiting for the right moment often feels responsible, patient, and intelligent, but in reality, it quietly hands over control of your life to circumstances you do not command. When you decide that your actions depend on external conditions lining up perfectly, you place your future in the hands of moods, events, other people, and unpredictable outcomes. That is a dangerous trade because circumstances are always shifting, and they rarely arrange themselves in your favor at the exact moment you want them to. The longer you wait, the more power you give away, and the less agency you feel over your own direction. Most people don't realize how subtle this surrender is. It doesn't feel like giving up, it feels like waiting. It feels like planning, preparing, or being realistic. But beneath that surface is a belief that says, I can't move until something outside of me changes. That belief keeps you reactive instead of proactive. It trains your mind to scan the environment for permission rather than generate momentum from within. Over time, this erodes confidence because every delay reinforces the idea that you are not the source of action, that something else is. Circumstances are neutral, but the meaning you assign to them determines your behavior. Two people can face the same challenge, the same uncertainty, the same fear, and respond in completely different ways. One waits for reassurance. The other moves despite the discomfort. The difference is not talent or luck. It is where they place control. When you wait for conditions to feel safe, you condition yourself to avoid growth. because growth by definition requires stepping into the unknown. The irony is that clarity rarely comes before action. It comes from action. When you move, you gather feedback. When you engage, you learn. When you take steps forward, even imperfect ones, you begin to see what works and what doesn't. Waiting keeps everything theoretical. Action makes things real. And once things are real, you can adjust, refine, and improve. Progress is born from participation, not observation. Every time you delay because you don't feel ready, you strengthen a habit of hesitation. The brain learns through repetition. If you repeatedly choose comfort over movement, your nervous system associates safety with inaction. That makes the next step feel even harder. But the opposite is also true. When you act despite uncertainty, you teach your system that discomfort is survivable, that fear is temporary, and that you are capable of moving forward without guarantees. Taking control means deciding that your standards, not your circumstances, dictate your behavior. It means acting from intention rather than reaction. Life does not reward those who wait for perfect timing. It responds to those who create momentum. The moment you stop waiting for external conditions to change and start choosing how you show up regardless of them, you reclaim your power and begin shaping your future from the inside out. Most people underestimate the quiet power of daily rituals because they don't feel dramatic or exciting, but rituals are the invisible architecture of momentum. While inspiration comes and goes like the weather, rituals operate regardless of mood. They are decisions made in advance that remove negotiation from your day. When you commit to a ritual, you are no longer asking yourself whether you feel like acting. You are simply executing a standard you have already chosen. This is where consistency is born and where real progress begins. A ritual is not about intensity. It is about reliability. It is the small action done repeatedly that trains your nervous system to expect movement. Over time, this expectation reduces resistance. The brain starts to associate certain times, places, or cues with action, and energy follows automatically. What once required effort begins to feel natural. This is why people who rely on inspiration struggle to stay consistent, while people who rely on rituals keep moving forward even on their worst days. Standards are the rules you live by, the behaviors you no longer debate. When your standards are low, you need high motivation to act. When your standards are high, motivation becomes optional. You don't need to feel inspired to brush your teeth. You do it because it is who you are. The same principle applies to growth, health, learning, and contribution. When something becomes part of your identity, you no longer wait for a feeling to trigger it. Momentum builds fastest when action is automatic. Daily rituals create a rhythm that compounds over time. One workout may not change your life, but a ritual of movement does. An E-focused work session may not transform your career, but a daily ritual of focused effort does. These actions stack, and as they stack, results begin to show. Results create belief. Belief fuels more commitment. This cycle is far more powerful than bursts of inspiration, followed by long periods of inaction. Inspiration is emotional, and emotions are fleeting. Rituals are structural. They shape your environment, your schedule, and your behavior in ways that support progress even when your energy is low. When life gets difficult, inspiration is usually the first thing to disappear. Rituals remain. They become anchors that keep you moving forward when circumstances are uncertain and emotions are unstable. The greatest advantage of daily rituals is that they remove drama from growth. You don't need to hype yourself up or wait for a perfect moment. You simply show up and do the work. Over time, this creates a deep sense of self-trust. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who honors commitments, someone who acts consistently. That identity is far more motivating than any external speech, quote, or emotional surge because it is built on lived experience, on repetition, on proof, on the quiet confidence that comes from doing what you said you would do day after day, whether you felt like it or not. Many people believe that their emotions should guide their actions, but emotions are reactions, not directives. When you let how you feel decide what you do, you allow temporary states to define long-term outcomes. Identity-driven action flips this dynamic completely. Instead of asking what feels good in the moment, You ask who you are committed to becoming, and then you act in alignment with that identity. This shift is subtle, but it is one of the most powerful changes a person can make. Your identity is the story you repeatedly tell yourself about. Be who you are and what you are capable of. Every action you take is a vote for that story. When you act only when motivated, you reinforce the identity of someone who needs external energy to move. When you act because it aligns with your values and standards, regardless of emotion, you reinforce the identity of someone who is disciplined, reliable, and self-directed. Over time, these small votes accumulate, and the identity becomes solid. Emotion-driven action is unstable because emotions fluctuate constantly. Stress, fatigue, fear, excitement, and uncertainty all influence how you feel from one moment to the next. If your behavior depends on emotional consistency, your progress will be inconsistent as well. Identity-driven action creates stability. It gives you a reference point that does not change with mood. You may feel tired, uncertain, or unmotivated, but you still act because that is what someone like you does. This approach also reduces internal conflict. When actions are driven by emotion, there is constant negotiation in the mind. Should I do this or not? Do I feel like it today? Maybe tomorrow will be better. Identity-based decisions eliminate this debate. The decision has already been made. You are simply living it out. This conserves mental energy and increases follow-through because you are not fighting yourself every day. Identity-driven action builds confidence in a deeper way than emotional highs ever can. Emotional motivation can feel powerful, but it fades quickly. Identity-based confidence grows slowly and steadily. It comes from repeated evidence that you can be trusted to act in alignment with your commitments. This kind of confidence does not depend on praise or results. It is internal. It is grounded. It remains even when progress feels slow. The most effective way to strengthen identity-driven action is to focus on keeping promises to you or self, especially small ones. Each time you follow through, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who does what they say they will do. This belief changes how you show up in every area of life. You stop waiting for permission from your emotions and start operating from intention. You become proactive instead of reactive. You move from being controlled by feelings to being guided by purpose. When identity leads and emotions follow, consistency becomes natural. Progress becomes inevitable, and your actions begin to reflect the person you have decided to be, not the mood you happen to wake up in. Power is not something that suddenly appears when conditions are perfect, or when confidence finally arrives. Power is built in moments where you choose to move before you feel ready. When you act first, you break the pattern of hesitation that keeps most people trapped in potential. That initial movement, however small, sends a signal to your mind and body that you are in control, that you are not waiting to be rescued by motivation or circumstance. In that moment, momentum is born. Most people believe that motivation should come before action, but the opposite is what actually creates strength. When you wait to feel motivated, you remain passive. When you move first, you become active. Activity generates feedback, energy, and engagement. The brain responds to this by releasing chemicals associated with focus and drive. What felt heavy begins to feel possible. What felt overwhelming starts to break into manageable pieces. Motivation rises not because you waited for it, but because you earned it through motion. Taking action first also reshapes how you see yourself. Each time you move despite resistance, you reinforce the identity of someone who does not need perfect emotions to progress. This identity is powerful because it is earned, not imagined. It is built through experience. Over time, these experiences accumulate into certainty. You stop questioning whether you can handle challenges because you have repeatedly proven that you can act even when discomfort is present. Momentum is fragile at first, but it grows quickly when protected. The key is not to look for massive leaps, but to focus on consistent forward movement. Small actions create small wins. Small wins create confidence. Confidence fuels larger actions. This sequence turns effort into power. People who seem unstoppable are often just people who refuse to stop moving when it was uncomfortable to begin. When you act first, you also disrupt fear. Fear thrives in stillness. It feeds on imagination and uncertainty. Action brings reality. Once you are engaged, fear loses its grip because your attention shifts from what might happen to what you are doing. Even if the outcome is not perfect, you gain information, experience, and resilience. These become tools for future action, making the next step easier than the last. Power grows when action becomes a habit rather than an exception. Each time you choose movement over hesitation, you strengthen your ability to lead yourself. This self-leadership creates a sense of inner authority. You no longer wait for motivation to arrive, you generate it. You no longer hope for confidence to appear, you build it. Momentum becomes a lifestyle, not a temporary surge, and once momentum is established, motivation naturally follows because the hardest part was never sustaining progress, it was starting, and you have already proven that you are capable of moving first and allowing the energy to catch up after